That's what you call ruling in absentia. She's still telling us what to do. It's good to see everybody here this morning. And this is several years that I've been doing this now. And we're trying to make it a little more upbeat, a little different, let's say. And that's part of what we're doing this morning, isn't it, Karen?
Yes, it is.
So I'm going to start off, since this is a tribute to Memorial Day. I'm going to read a little bit about the history of Memorial Day. Most of you, or a lot of you, may know how Memorial Day came about. Some of you may not, but this is what I've been able to find out about Memorial Day. On Monday, May the 28th of this year, 2018, Americans across this nation and citizens located around the world will pause throughout the day to observe Memorial Day. Since its first official observation on the 5th of May, 1868, when it was called, what was it called in the beginning?
Decoration Day.
Decoration Day. It has been a day of remembrance for those who sacrificed and died in our nation's service. And while it was originally dedicated to honor Civil War soldiers, we know it today as a celebration in memory of all who have fought for and defended our right to freedom. In 1968, the observation of this day was established to be the last Monday in May. Today, it remains a time of observation to honor and to respect those who fought to protect the liberties that our founding fathers proclaimed with certainty in the Declaration of Independence, and that were thoughtfully and carefully framed in the Constitution of the United States. In this proclamation to set aside this day in 1868, General Logan, who was the General of Army at that time, instructed there to be thoughts to, and I quote, cherish tenderly the memories of our heroic dead who made their breast a barricade between our country and its foes. To those who died securing peace and freedom, to those who served in conflict to protect our land and sacrificed their dreams of the day to preserve the hope of our nation, America, the land of the free, for over 2 centuries, we owe our thanks and our honor. It is important to not only recognize their service, but to respect their devotion to duty and to ensure that the purpose for which they fought will never be forgotten. From the soldiers who fought bravely during the American Revolution to the men and women of today's armed forces, America's fighting forces have responded bravely to this nation's call to duty. Both on the battlefield and in their assurance of readiness, members of the nation's military remain bound to their duty. For more than 200 years, America's armed forces have been the surest guarantee that freedom will continue to ring across this land from sea to shining sea. So now you know a little bit about where Memorial Day originated and why it is what we have today. Okay.
My turn?
Karen is going to give a history of each song, so I told her not to let me forget to let her go first.
Our first song is going to be Yankee Doodle. Yankee Doodle is a well-known American song, the early version of which dated to before the 7 Years' War and the American Revolution. It is often sung patriotically in the United States today and is the state anthem of Connecticut. The melody is thought to be much older than both the lyrics and the subject, going back to folk songs of medieval Europe.
All right, now
We're all going to sing.
You're going to have to stand with me to sing this one. All right, everybody stand up. Stand and give us a chorus. What it is. Yankee Doodle went to town riding on a pony, stuck a feather in his hat and called it macaroni. Yankee Doodle, keep it up. Yankee Doodle dandy. Find the music and the steps and with the girls be handy. All right, now you're going to have to reach back in your memory for the second verse. Father and I went down to camp along with Captain Goody. There we saw the men and boys as thick as hasty pudding. Yankee Doodle, keep it up. Yankee Doodle dandy. Find the music and your steps and with the girls be handy. You remember the third verse? There was Captain Washington. All right? And there was Captain Washington upon a mighty stallion, giving orders to his men. There must have been 1,000,000. Yankee Doodle, keep it up. Yankee Doodle landing. Mind the music and you're stepping with the girls handy. Give yourself a hand.
Good job. Good job.
Okay, Karen.
Oh, Susanna is our next song. Oh, Susanna is a minstrel song by Stephen Foster, 1826 to 1864, first published in 1848. It is among the most popular American songs ever written, and Karen is going to do a solo on this song.
Now this was Neoma's idea, not here.
And if she tells us, we'll join in. If
I
she-
thought maybe her violin might be loud, and all that. That's just me. Come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee, going to Louisiana, my true love for to see. Rained all night the day I left, the weather it was dry. Sun so hot, frost to death, Susanna, don't you cry. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me. Come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. As a dream the other night when everything was still, thought I saw Susanna coming down the hill. Lovely cakes in her mouth, tears in her eyes. Said I am come from the south, Susanna, don't you cry. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me. Come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee.
Good job. Good job.
If you clap along,
Yeah.
Battle Hymn of the Republic is next. The Battle Hymn of the Republic, also known as Mine Eyes Have Seen the Glory outside of the United States, is a lyric by the American writer Julia Ward Howard, using the music from the song John Brown's Body. Howard's more famous lyrics were written in November 1861 and first published in February of 1862. The song links the judgment of the wicked at the end of the age with the American Civil War. Since that time, it has become an extremely popular and well-known American patriotic song.
Battle hymn.
Pardon?
Battle hymn.
And Naomi said this is to be a solo,
Yeah,
right?
this is Howard's solo. And I tell you what, she wants him to sing the words because she said they're so meaningful and they tell about the battle. So Howard's going to sing Battle Hymn.
All right. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes are red. He has loosed the faithful lightning of his terrible sword. His truth is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. And I'm going to add a little more to the story about this second verse. It starts out, I've seen him in the watchfires of 100 circling camps. This Julia Ward Howe, they had been in Washington, D.C., and they had gone out to see the part of a battle close to Washington. And when they tried to get back to the city, they had trouble getting back, and all they could see were the campfires of the soldiers camped out in D.C. And that's where she got the inspiration to do this second verse. I've seen him in the watchfire. I have seen him in the watchfire of 100 circling camps. They have built him an altar in the evening dews and damps. I can read his righteous sins by the dim and flaring lamp. His days marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. in the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea. Sing with me. In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea, with the glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. As he died to make me holy, let us die to make me free. For God is marching on. Everybody now. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. His truth is marching on. Fantastic.
Thank you.
At this point, we'll have the Gettysburg Address.
More people on this side. Hi, Ellen, good to see you. On November the 19th, 1863, outside the little town in Pennsylvania called Gettysburg, President Abraham Lincoln gave this address. 77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those men who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this, but in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little note nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather to be here dedicated to the unfinished work which they who struggled here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave their last full measure of devotion. That we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that that government of the people, by the people, and for the people, shall not perish from the earth. When Abraham Lincoln finished this address, no one clapped, no one cheered. He thought it was a failure, but it's probably the best known of his addresses. I have a grandfather, Charles Wesley Ernest, that's buried up here in the cemetery, that fought in the Union Army back sometime. And after the war was over, they gave him a pension of $7 a month. But then, all the people, by the people, and for the people.
Very good.
Moving along down our travel with songs, and now we're going to be in the post-war, post-Civil War during the 1880s and the 1890s, and this is a song that Karen has chosen to sing that could have been heard on the plains in the Wild Wild West era.
Yeah, Mary Ann Neoma chose this for me, and she's not here. Out where the ponies fall, there's birds
God Bless America is going to be our final song in the program. God Bless America is an American patriotic song written by Irving Berlin during World War I in 1918 and revised by him in the run up to the World War II in 1938. God Bless America takes the form of a prayer for God's blessings and peace for the nation.
Are we skipping America the Beautiful?
Why?
We'll have to sing it, and
We'll do America the Beautiful last.
they
Okay.
stuck together. I'm sorry.
They stuck
I wasn't trying to rush through it. Sorry.
Well, you gotta watch this, brother. They watch that fool you every time.
We're going to do America the Beautiful last anyway, right?
Yeah, right. So this is God Bless America,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
Whichever one you want to do.
Okay,
God bless
okay,
America,
okay,
works
God
for
bless
me.
America.
Let's all stand. You've been sitting too long, and Steve, I saw his eyes drooping back there. So, God Bless America 3 times, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. And again now, God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. And I think it's appropriate that while we're standing, we give the pledge to the flag. Okay? I pledge allegiance
To the
to the
flag
flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then we'll sing that one more time. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Thank you. You may be seated. Did a good job on that. Miss Karen.
Now we want to do America the Beautiful. It's an American patriotic song. The lyrics were written by Catherine Lee Bates, and the music was composed by church organist Samuel A. Ward at Grace Episcopal Church in Newark, New Jersey. Bates originally wrote the words as a poem, first published in the 4th of July edition of the church periodical. Ward had originally written the music for another hymn in 1882, though it was not first published until 1892. Ward's music, combined with the Bates poem, was first published in 1910 and titled America the Beautiful. The song is one of the most popular of the U.S. patriotic songs.
Before we do this one, I was just noticing the little flag, and I've run across something this week. I was kind of thinking about what we might do here this morning, and found this. It's a stop to salute on Memorial Day. And this kind of hits home if you listen to it real carefully. This is written by a man named Captain John Rasmussen, and in 2002, so it's a fairly recent deal. He said it was raining cats and dogs, and I was late for physical training. Traffic was backed up at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and was moving way too slowly. I was probably going to be late, and I was growing more and more impatient. The pace slowed almost to a standstill as I passed Memorial Grove, the site built to honor the soldiers who died in the Gander airplane crash, the worst deployment accident in the history of the 101st Airborne Division. Because it was so close to Memorial Day, a small American flag had been placed in the ground next to each soldier's memorial plaque. My concern at the time, however, was getting past the bottleneck, getting out of the rain, and getting to PT on time. All of a sudden, infuriatingly, just as the traffic was getting started again, the car in front of me stopped. A soldier, a private of course, jumped out in the pouring rain and ran toward the grove. I couldn't believe it. This knucklehead was holding up everyone for who knows what kind of prank. Horns were honking. I waited to see the butt chewing that I wanted him to get for making me late. He was getting soaked to the skin. His BDUs were plastered to his frame. I watched as he ran up to one of the memorial plaques, picked up the small American flag that had fallen to the ground in the wind and the rain, and set it upright again. Then slowly he came to attention, saluted, ran back to his car and drove off. I'll never forget that incident. That soldier, whose name I will never know, taught me more about duty, honor, and respect than 100 books or 1,000 lectures. That simple salute, that single act of honoring his fallen brother and his flag encapsulated all the Army values in one gesture for me. It said, I will never forget, I will keep the faith, I will finish the mission, I am an American soldier. I thank God for examples like that. And on this Memorial Day, I will remember all those who paid the ultimate price for my freedom, and one private soaked to the skin who honored them. That hits home, doesn't it?
Yep.
You bet it does. All right, let's sing America the Beautiful. Oh, beautiful for spacious sky, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for patriotry that sees beyond the years. Thine alabaster cities lay undimmed by human tears. America, America, God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Is that it? I would like to have every one of our veterans in the room just stand for a moment, would you please? I know there's some vets here that have served